Hello, and welcome to Speaking of Supply Chain, where we explore trends, current events, and innovations impacting the logistics and supply chain industries. I'm your host, Ellen Wood. Today, we're excited to be joined by my colleague, Michael White, and Nari Viswanathan from Coupa, and we're going to be talking about supply chain planning and design tools. Welcome, gentlemen.
Hello.
Hello and welcome. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, this is an important topic, supply chain planning tools. It's a big deal right now in the industry. And I know that there is a whole lot to talk about. But first, before we get into that, let's take a quick break and get to know each of you a little bit more. So, our icebreaker question for today is: what is your number one tip for combating distractions when working from home or remotely? It's not always home. Nari, you want to start us off?
Sure, I'll do that. Thanks, Ellen, for that. So my name is Nari Viswanathan. I'm Senior Director of Product Marketing at Coupa. Pleased to be joining in this podcast. I have been working out of home for several years now. I've been fortunate to do it. I believe the biggest distraction that happens is those which cannot be avoided. When you have a family, you have kids who are going to school, if they fall sick, things like that. You have to take care of those, and that's the flexibility that we get when we work out of home. The key to
Absolutely.
success is to get all our tasks done on time and in good quality. And I really think that is a great boon for us in this information technology industry.
Absolutely. What about you, Michael?
Excellent. All right. Well, yeah, I'm Michael White, Senior Consultant with Miebach. Let's see. I think my you know, biggest thing was having a dedicated space to actually do your work. Um, when we started COVID, it was I think I was in a pretty small apartment, and my the only desk I had was 2 feet away from my bed in my room, so it was a little could be a little distracting at times. Since then, I have my own little office area that makes it a lot easier to when you're in that area, you're working, and then when you're out, you're not working. So I think allocating your own space and really just locking in for the day is the best way to do that.
So, I don't know. Nora, you bring up a great point about distractions are going to happen. That's just the nature of the beast when working remotely, and we have to be flexible and give ourselves the grace to understand that sometimes things are going to happen. But Michael, your point about having a dedicated space, I agree, but my dedicated workspace at home is my kids' playroom. I mean, that's where my desk is. So if they're at home, they're in my space, and there's no way to get away from those distractions. So I think it's a little bit of both, carve out the space and the time when you have it. Sometimes I set a timer if I need to get up from my desk and move around, because I have a timer set on my watch for, breaks to move throughout the day. And if I do that and I'm at home, I'll go load the dishwasher or grab
Yep.
laundry or run the vacuum or do something.
Oh yeah,
And it's crazy, and then you have to get back into the work state of mind. So I use a timer just to give myself the ability to step away for a moment and then make sure I come back to it, so that way it doesn't become a permanent distraction.
yeah. That's definitely a good way to do it. It's really all about the mindset because it's so easy to see. There's a little bit of dust on the ground. Let me just vacuum really quick. I'm just going to do one little streak of the vacuum, and then 20 minutes later, you vacuum. You're dusting the floorboards and whatnot. So yeah, it's really about that mindset, and I like that timer. I'm gonna start
It's
doing
kind
that.
of how our we as supply chain professionals also face, right? Like, they have conflicting priorities, and you have limited budget. You have to figure out how to do the trade-offs between those conflicting priorities, time boxing your tasks so that you finish it. I see a lot of analogy between what we face in our personal life and what supply chain professionals face.
That is absolutely true. Well, let's get into the supply chain. So, we know that larger enterprise organizations have resources dedicated to supply chain, to procurement, to distribution, all these different departments, all these different business units. But at what point in a business's growth journey or maturity journey does it make sense to actually plan out supply chain things as opposed to just growing organically as the business grows? I mean, sometimes you have to make a plan, and when is that the right decision to do?
Yeah, maybe I can take that. I think the when a company grows, you typically have someone like a chief executive officer or a chief operations officer. Like they don't really have a dedicated supply chain organization. In
Mm-hmm.
my experience, the companies that have really done well, who have kind of grown out of that small, medium business revenue into becoming a more of an enterprise company, reaching 1 billion, are those people who are quite savvy, especially if they have a physical supply chain, they are in the manufacturing industry, distribution industry. The chief executives are quite supply chain savvy. They don't quite talk about it as supply chain. It's to them, it's about business. Hey, I have demand,
Right.
I have supply. How do I balance those two so that I can make money? That's really fundamentally how they think about it. They don't think of it as, hey, this is a supply chain issue or is this a procurement issue and so on. So I believe that it's only when you start expanding your company into multiple geographies and really start having these proliferation of SKUs that you're selling, things that cannot be done in Excel. That's when you really need to start thinking about having a supply chain, dedicated persona, dedicated, lead, and then of course tools to help support your planning processes.
Mm-hmm.
Prior to that, it's all kind of done ad hoc. And companies which do a good job of it, they manage to cross that gap or cross that chasm, become a larger company. Others who are not good at it, unfortunately, they end up not surviving.
So, with the plethora of design tools and digital capabilities that are out there, aside from Excel, we do know we know that a lot of companies still use Excel. But aside from that, what are some important factors to consider when deciding which to use or choosing one of these tools that are out on the market? There's so many available. How does one go about looking for which one is best for them? How do you even make that determination?
I would say it really boils down to the kind of um, challenges that your company is facing in terms of is your logistics the biggest opportunity for you? Is it your procurement? Is it your manufacturing? Yeah, if you look at the total cost of goods sold of the products that you have, where is your biggest low-hanging fruit? If you look at it from that angle, I think you can really think about, okay, what's the best way to address this issue? Ideally, you want to select a tool which is not limiting you to one small portion of your supply chain. You want a tool that's able to grow. Like you may solve a particular problem, a point problem, but eventually you want to solve a tool that can help solve the end-to-end problem. That will be the key. Choose something that is something that can solve your problem immediately, but also grow along with you.
So something a little more comprehensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest considerations that I've seen and things to consider is really the data and the data maturity of the organization, because data is the heart, is the oil of these models of the software that you're going to be running, and solving issues for. And if you're putting junk data into a model, you're going to get junk out. So you really need to ensure that your quality of data, your access to data, is quality enough, um, that you can ensure that the results that you're going to get out of it, are going to be sufficient as well. I think also the recurrence and how often you want to refresh these kinds of models or analyses. Is this a one-time thing that you want to do, once every 10 years, or is this something that you have such, fluctuations in your demand that you want to see refreshes on a daily basis, Do you want to, connect to live data sources, or is this, a static Excel that you want to plug in? So I think there's, you know, Ellen, like you said, there's so many different options on the market. Um, but with data being the sort of the lifeblood holding it all together, and um, making it run, that's really one of the biggest considerations that I can think of.
Well, and you mentioned 10 years, doing a single, optimization or running a model. I know we used to use 10 years as kind of the benchmark for when that needed to happen, if that was the way you were going to go about doing it. But I was speaking with a colleague not too long ago, and we were going over this, and one thing that she had come up with was that, you know past COVID, especially, now it's every 3 years. So that timeline has shortened significantly. Now, obviously, if you're using an external data source and updating daily, that's a different animal entirely. But is 10 years still the benchmark, or are we to a much shorter planning horizon where it's 3 to 5 years that you need to be really looking at this data and determining what needs to happen?
So I believe it depends on the decision that you want to make. And
True.
it doesn't have to be either or. You could still have a plan that is a lot more accurate for the next 1 year, less accurate for year 2 to 3, and then between year 3 to 10, it's more directional. Because
Mhm.
some of the decisions that you have to make, if you're a semiconductor manufacturer, if you have to build a plant, or if you're a roofing manufacturer, you have to build a plant, it could be a multi-year process, and the amount of capital that you need to budget for could be significantly high. So for those decisions, you still need a 10-year horizon.
True.
And then for more tactical decisions dealing with, hey, I need to build a relationship with a new supplier, that could be a decision that's happening within like the 1 to 3 year kind of time frame. And then between now and the end of the year, it could be things like, hey, how do I increase the capacity in one of my plants? Can I get labor, contract labor, to cover for additional demand? So I think the decision that we are making, the intelligence that we need to make that decision, if the tool can provide, that is really what is needed for our business executives.
That's a great point, that it really the decision you're trying to make determines how long that planning horizon needs to go out. So I know that our dedicated modeling team, of which, Michael, you are a part of, at Miebach, has supported a number of clients using the Coupa App Studio. When does it make sense for the end user to internalize that functionality and use the tool themselves versus working with a partner to support them? Because, I mean, yes, having external experts come in to support the business on very technical things like this is good when your maturity is lower. You don't have the dedicated staff. You don't. It's a big lift to do this. So, at what point do businesses typically say, okay, I've got this, I can do this on my own?
Sure, I can take it, but I think Michael also, I'm sure he has some great points.
Absolutely.
So in terms of I think it boils down to what stage of maturity they are in. Like I think in the initial stage, when they are not aware of, or they don't have the process set up for being able to do supply chain design and planning, folks like yourself from Miebach are critical for them to get over that hump. It's like having a personal trainer in a gym, because they have their muscles are not yet developed. They need a coach to be able to train them and get that discipline. Once they understand that well, and they have been able to make it as a habit, then we can take a step back. Folks like Miebach can take a step back and let the customers go on that journey. But I think
Hmm.
still what's going to happen is when they go on that journey, they will face hurdles, and they might revert back to a poorer process. So having an ongoing checkpoint of being able to collaborate with them and act as an advisor, I think that's a very important role that uh, Miebach can play. in this situation.
I love that analogy. That is fabulous. What do you think, Michael?
Yeah, no, I think that's I've never heard that analogy, but it's definitely very accurate. You know, we kind of I guess looking back, we do act as sort of a personal trainer for getting someone in shape, whipping them into shape in the gym, sort of as they're on their first journey down the supply chain design road roadmap or you know on their lifespan of that. But, once you kind of start doing it a little bit more, you kind of learn how to do things your own way. You don't need as much guidance. um, I think there it starts to you start to develop those capabilities. You start to see other areas that you can improve. You've got we're just a coach, but you now see there's nutrition areas that we can work on. I might need to work on different aspects there. It's also about the recurrence. Is this something that we want to work on continuously, or is this a marathon that I'm training for once every couple of years, or is it really I want to bulk up my supply chain, if you will, and really have more of a rigorous plan. So yeah, I really like that analogy.
All right. So, what success stories do either of you have about this and being that personal trainer or helping a client along their supply chain maturity and getting them to that place of being able to self-sustain their planning?
We ideally want all of our customers to be able to go through that process. Oftentimes, it doesn't end up that way because of various reasons. One of the common reason happens to be the fact that the it's a harder challenge to get talent who are focused on supply chain design, supply chain modeling, analytics related talent. So if a modeler is there, we have trained a modeler and they are at a company. If they leave the company, then it becomes harder to get somebody trained, get them up to speed and things like that. So that's a challenge that we face commonly. But for many of our customers who have realized the importance of supply chain design and planning, realized the value of analytics, realize the value of using optimization capabilities and artificial intelligence capabilities to make decisions, they have invested. They've invested in infrastructure, working with like a coach like Miebach,
Mm-hmm.
having in-house talent brought in, set up centers of excellence in charge of managing these long-term processes. Those are the companies which are really successful. So one example that I recently talked to is a very large high technology manufacturer of network equipment. They are working in an environment where there are 60 different business units. Each business unit has their own sales and operations planning processes. This group, who are utilizing the Coupa capabilities for supply chain design, they are plugged into that S&OP process, and they act as that expert uh, center of excellence, for able to take a step back and run quite very high reaching scenarios, in the sense that critical scenarios, where to build facilities, what kind of products to launch in the market, being able to run those kind of scenarios, business scenarios, and to be able to make those critical decisions which will set the company along in that strategic direction. That's how they are, that's a critical role that they are playing. And we see many examples of those in other industries as well. But it's not a surprise that they have came to that stage. It did not happen overnight. It had to take place over several months, because as we discussed in the previous question, you have to really build up your body to build up your infrastructure to be able to reach that level of maturity.
What about you, Michael? Any customer success stories of helping clients through that transition of training to on their own?
Yeah, there's one I can think of kind of off the bat, and it's a fashion and apparel retailer that it's a pretty long-standing client of Miebach's. So there was, prior to the engagement that I was on, we had helped them, really from end to end, from a strategy to an implementation piece. So they were only in operations on the West Coast. They had grown pretty rapidly in terms of sales growth and new customers across the country. And we helped them identify a locale to set up operations in. From a strategic standpoint, we also helped them set up automation and whatnot in that facility. But where we came in on the engagement that I was involved in was post COVID, and they were really struggling with you know being resilient and trying to fulfill all of the orders and all of these new customers that they were having coming out of COVID. So they really wanted to identify a more strategic plan to supplement and mitigate all of this, all of the growth and change within their supply chain. So we helped them again, we copy and pasted again, taking all of the new considerations, all of the new data pieces, all of the new customers, and really put together a model that identified new regions to grow into, new locations, and how to supplement and split that, their inventory and whatnot. But after that project, we really helped them use this data that we were using for these strategic models, and use more of the softwares within the four walls of the facilities, and really understand some of the issues that they were facing within the four walls as well, using process mining and whatnot in there. So I think that's it's a very unique client that we worked on, and it was very good to see that we're able to help them solve that.
Awesome. Well, okay. My last question here. It's a shameless plug for both Miebach and Coupa. Can't help it. So talking about these client success stories, the major event for Coupa every year for their clients, for their users, software users, is Inspire. And that's taking place in April in Las Vegas. And one of the biggest things about this particular conference is the training portion of the conference. So yes, there's the conference where you can meet with different vendors like Miebach, who support these tools and support their clients' use of these tools. But there is also training that takes place for this at the conference. And I've been to Inspire. It is a wonderful conference. Let's talk a little bit more about what's going to be happening there. And I think, Nari, you are the perfect person to jump in and tell us a little bit more about what to expect in April in Las Vegas.
So thank you, Ellen, for talking about Inspire. We are extremely excited about this year's event. It's shaping up really, really well. We are seeing a lot of interest from our customer base. Many of them are joint customers. We're having speaking sessions, panels, individual sessions from really good brand names. In fact, there's going to be one session where Miebach is going to be coordinating or moderating a session along with Kraft Heinz, Danone, and Grupo Bimbo. Looking forward to that. So that session is going to talk about building resiliency within supply chains. In addition to these breakout sessions, we are also going to have other areas where we can interact with customers. One of them is the user training. We want to use this opportunity of our customers coming to Inspire and make sure that they are trained on both the fundamentals, in fact, real focused training on modeling, utilization of capabilities such as data guru, supply chain modeler, making sure that they understand the basics, and then also talk about some of the new product innovations that we are doing, new capabilities that we are adding in the area of artificial intelligence and so on. There is also going to be a customer advisory board session where some of our customers will be able to interact with our product team and to be able to shape the roadmap of the capabilities that we'll be building to the future. So lots to look out for, and look forward to collaborating with Miebach on that.
Absolutely. Michael, I don't know, are you attending Inspire this year?
I think that's still to be determined.
Okay.
I have been in the past. You said you're most excited for the trainings. I thought you were going to say you're most excited for the concert at the end. I know that's been some of our favorite events or favorite parts of the conference in the past. But no, to your point, I think I benefited the most from these trainings when I've gone prior, and actually speaking to the people who either developed the programs or really have guided sort of these new pieces of the software of the tools. I is so beneficial, and being able to interact with the team, and kind of generate different ideas of how we think we can use these new tools that are rolling out. It seems on a daily basis, and seeing how we can you know increase the services that we offer to our end customer, and to the end customer that's going to be using Coupa, is so beneficial. And seeing how it's gone from just this sort of small supply chain design tool, modeling tool, and how it can really connect into all the other facets that Coupa has. You can take this small, relatively, supply chain model and actually connect it to pieces of Coupa, and use that for procurement and sourcing of the outputs of the recommendation of that model. So I think that's been some of the most eye-opening and beneficial pieces from attending Inspire in the past.
I agree. The concert was a lot of fun. It always is. But in the conferences that I have gone to, I'm never a part of the training because I'm not one of the modelers, but I do speak to a lot of the individuals there at the conference, and all of the feedback I've ever gotten is that it is so useful and beneficial to have that training there, to really, I mean, it's not that Coupa doesn't offer the training when someone purchases the tool and is ready to use it, or that they don't have a company like Miebach that's able to help with that onboarding and integration and training of how to coach and be their trainer on how to use this tool. But being able to come together with other users from other industries or the same industry and see what some of those best practices are, how other people are utilizing it, and really just have that sense of community to be able to increase your own capabilities within the tool, was some of the feedback that I had gotten, and always positive feedback on
Yeah.
the conference and what that couple days of training beforehand offers. So
Yeah.
looking very forward to April.
Yeah. So, Ellen, I think one very important point that you made was this camaraderie and the collaboration that you can see with other companies who are out there. So, if somebody is starting out as a modeler, imagine having a chance to talk to somebody who is 15, 20 years experience in a particular industry, knows their business processes really well, and to hear from them about how they are able to model some of their business capabilities. I think that would be very beneficial for those who are earlier in their careers. So I do think that that forum where you are able to interact with companies across different industries, across different stages of career, I think that's invaluable in my opinion. And we have heard a lot of feedback about that.
Yes, absolutely. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this episode. Gentlemen, I had a fantastic time discussing this tool and what capabilities it opens up for all of these users. I hope our listeners enjoyed the topic as much as I did. If any of our listeners out there have a suggestion for another topic or would like to be a guest on the show, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to me at podcast@miebach.com. As always, thanks for listening to Speaking of Supply Chain. If you enjoyed our show, please rate and review us on whatever podcast platform you prefer. We're on Apple Podcasts, Google, Spotify, or iHeartRadio. Be sure to tune in next time.